Welcome to the Get in the Fight podcast. My name is Nate Whitson, and I'm the founder of Get in the Fight Ministries and our exclusive online fight club for Christian men. Everything we do here is dedicated to helping Christian men become the men that God meant for them to be. So if you're looking for helpful content and conversations that can help you to grow and become the man that God made you to be, then you're in the right place. But before we get started, please do me a huge favor and be sure to subscribe, click the like button, and then leave us a 5-star review. Doing that helps us to reach more men who are looking for content just like this. Also, if you'd like to learn more about our mission and how to get involved or how to join the Fight Club, then head on over to getinthefight.club. That's getinthefight.club and learn more today. But without further ado, it's time to get in the fight. So let's go. Hey guys, welcome to the Get in the Fight podcast. I'm your host, Nate Whitson. Thank you for being here with us today. We're trying to help Christian men be better husbands and fathers, followers of Jesus, and just better men in general. And today's podcast, I hope, is one that really matches that well, and I think it is. I'm really excited to kind of share with you some of the things that I've been studying and learning. In particular, this is coming from Greg McKeown. I don't know how you say his last name, K-E-O-W-N, McKeown. His book, which is incredible, it's called Essentialism. I think I read it years ago, actually, and liked it, didn't love it. For whatever reason, sometimes when you reread a book, you're at a different stage in life or whatever, but it hits you different. Man, I'm taking notes like crazy. Great book. I'm going to make sure it's in the show notes so that you can find that and check that out. Certainly think that you should. But based on chapter 19, he talks about this idea of prioritizing what matters most. And when I'm thinking about this battle for focus in our life, how do we as men get better at focusing on what matters most? I mean, we live in a distracted, crazy world. We all would say that. We all would recognize that. But like, how do we do this? How do we get better in this area of not only just like knowing what's true, but doing what matters most? How do we win this battle for focus in a distracted, crazy world? I don't know about you, but man, I feel this one. I felt it as I was reading it. And so I've kind of put some of my own spin on this, my own thoughts on this. Again, you can read Greg's book, Essentialism. Think you should. But just here's some thoughts from me today. I want you to, first of all, just picture a man running in a marathon. All right. So imagine that you're at mile 18. Maybe you're the man running in the New York Marathon. Can you picture that? You're running down the road, but now you're at mile 18. You start thinking about the next 8 miles. You're thinking, man, I've already made it 18 miles and I still have 8 more to go. Right? In this situation, your mind starts spiraling and you just kind of start thinking like, man, what if I can't finish? What if my legs can't keep up? What if I collapse? What if this? What if that? And you start losing focus on the race. You start to slow down. Your legs start to feel so heavy. Doubt starts to creep in. Now, I want you to imagine in a different scenario, a different runner, okay? Same race, different dude. This guy, though, comes into the same mile 18 marker with just a completely different mindset. This guy, instead of worrying about the finish line, instead of focusing on, the next 8 miles, he just goes one more step. He goes, just focus on this mile. Get to number 7, right? 1 foot in front of the other. Just a completely different mindset. This guy, instead of feeling like he's just going to collapse, instead of feeling like his legs weigh 1,000 pounds, instead of just feeling dread, this guy just slows down. He breathes. He just keeps running. He stays present. He stays focused, 1 step at a time. And all of a sudden for this guy, the race just feels a lot more manageable. 1 step, 1 moment at a time. How about this illustration? Thinking about a dad maybe with his son at the park. This one hits home, I'm sure, for so many of us. Imagine that you're there with your boy and you've got your son or your daughter, whatever fits for you. Just picture this. You're at the park with your kid or your grandkid, whatever. The kid is like just super excited and the boy's just tugging on your hand. He's like, come on, Dad, push me on the swing. Come on, Dad, let's go over here. Dad, like push me here, push me there. The dad, though, is just on his phone. This is such a sad thing, man, right? This father's glued to his phone. He's scrolling through. He's reading emails. He's kind of checking the news. He's seeing if anybody's following him on Twitter or whatever it is. He's worrying about deadlines, or maybe he's just checking in with work. And he just says to the son, "Hang on, buddy. Be right there, man. Hang on. Be right there." Seconds, though, turn into minutes. He's just scrolling away. And before you know it, the son just kind of moves on. He starts playing with somebody else. Later, that dad gets home, right? Lays his son down, and he's like, "Doggone it, man. I missed it." Like, I was physically there with my son, but I was mentally completely somewhere else, right? He knows now when it's too late that he missed a moment that he can't get back because he was distracted by things that weren't as important as what his most important thing was, his son, who was right there in front of him. Like when I think of those stories, I thought those would be helpful to really just kind of like giving you that sense of like, man, we know that we ought to focus. We know that winning and losing in life has so much to do with our ability or our inability to focus on what matters most. It's not like this is a new concept for us, right? We all know that we should focus like that. We all know that winning matters, when it comes to being a better dad, better husband, better follower of Jesus, just living life better. Like, this isn't a new idea. Like, hey, let's focus on what matters most. Like, we all want to win. We all want to hear God say, "Well done." We want our sons and daughters and wives to look back and just be like, "Man, I'm so grateful for the way that he lived his life," right? This conversation today, I think that if we like just really embrace this short little conversation we're having together, I really think it can be a game changer for us men. This idea that I'm going to present you with here is like this idea of learning to make decisions, because the decisions that we make lead us to certain destinations. They all are going to lead us somewhere, right? Every decision that you make is a step in a direction somewhere. It's going to lead you somewhere, either to the guy in the race feeling like I can't go on, or the dad at night going, "Man, I can't get that back," right? Or the dad that says, "You know what? I'm so glad I put that phone away because there was nothing more important than my kid, and I'm so glad I won that moment," right? Different directions, different destinations based on decision making about what matters most, right? So the question isn't like, should we focus on what matters most? The question that I think I wrestle with is a very like, just, I want to know the practical details of life, is how do you do it? How do we as men focus on what matters most? How do we start to win the battle for focus? What Greg presented was a story of a coach, a soccer coach, who was like ultra successful. Like, they just won championship after championship. In this book, he tells the story of this coach, and everybody's like, "Well, what's your secret?" And he's like, "We just win." Well, when the coach said "we just win," it was really this acrostic that was like his motto, his mantra for his team. And what he taught his players is what I want to teach you today. It's thinking of this word win, W-I-N. Each letter stands for a word. The W stands for what's, the I stands for important, and the N stands for now. So when you think of how do I focus on what matters most, I want you to think of the word win. What's important now? This like simple idea, man, I'm telling you, when I was reading, it was so profound. It's like, man, I started to print this off, wrote the word win, just put it big. That's all it says. Put it on my fridge, and think maybe you should too. It's a simple like trick. It's a simple little hack to help you to focus moment by moment on what matters most, by simply moment by moment throughout your day saying, "Okay, slow it down. What's important now?" Right? It reminds me of this verse from Ephesians 5:15 and 16 that says, "Be very careful then how you live." Be very careful how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity. Man, what a perfect verse for thinking about like winning the battle for focus and learning how do we prioritize what matters most. Scriptures tell us, be very careful with the way that you live. Many of us are just living so unwisely. We're like that runner, just constantly worried about 8 miles down the road instead of just taking step by step. We're so much like that dad. Many of us are that dad who are missing the moments that really matter most right in front of us because we're worried about tomorrow's deadline, or we're worrying about the email, or we're worrying about just things that just aren't most important in the moment. God tells us, don't live as unwise. And in fact, the way that you do that is the thing that we're talking about here today. You start to you ask yourself in the moment, what's important right now? What's important right now? This is how you make the most of every opportunity. All right, so let's just talk a little bit about some thoughts that came to my mind as I start thinking through this. And I'm telling you, like, I'm fired up for this one because, again, I'm going to put it on my fridge. I'm going to figure out how to, like, maybe make a screensaver. I don't know. But I'm going to figure out how to just put win there because this is like motivational to me. This is like a lot of how my life has been driven. I know we're all different. We're all built different. But I am kind of built like that guy that just, I want to win, right? I don't care what it is. I want to be the best at it. I don't want to be average at anything. I want to win. Well, that's not a terrible thing when you're thinking about being a better husband. I want to win at all costs as a husband. What does that take? I want to win at all costs as a father. What does that take? I want to win at all costs for the kingdom of God and the follower of Jesus Christ. What does that take? I want to be the best man that I can be. What does that take, right? These are good things to try to win at. This is a life well lived. This is being careful how I live. This is learning to make the most of every opportunity in my life, right? So this matters to us when we're pursuing the right things. But think about like when your focus is on winning, but it's more like winning the rat race, and you're so focused on getting out of debt that maybe you're missing something else over here, or you're so focused on getting in great shape that you're missing on something over here. What are you focused on winning the most? Where are you spending your time? Where are you spending your money? Think about that today. Is it really what's most important now? That's really the question. This is how we evaluate ourselves. This is how we get better and grow. All right. So 3 quick things here. Just talking about the power of presence, the power of right now and why it matters. You know, it's like we know intuitively that you don't get tomorrow. We know intuitively that you don't get 85 years. In fact, I had this conversation this week with my wife, and she's like, man, I can't believe, like, I feel like maybe I'm like halfway through life now. Like, how did this happen? You know, we all go through those moments. And I was like, man, I don't even know. Like, we think that, but that's assuming you get however many years. Like, we assume so much. We assume so much about the future. We assume that now is just this small little piece and we're going to get many more of them, but we don't know. We don't know if it's that car accident or the cancer, the diagnosis of this or whatever it is, right? We don't know. Maybe not even in our own lives. Maybe it's our loved ones. We assume so much about the future, but life is lived in the moment. Life is lived right now, not in the future. And for so many of us, it's not in the past, right? We can't live that way, right? When we focus on the things that we don't have, or maybe we focus on what might happen in the future, we worry about those things. It just means like we're wasting so much energy. We're wasting so much life that could be used for something more productive in the moment. Think about like this verse here. This is so wise. Of course, I mean, the creator who wrote this, inspired this, Matthew 6:34. Therefore, don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about tomorrow. Why? Because tomorrow will worry about itself. Hey guys, I wanted to take a quick break from the show to share with you 3 things that I think could help you to become more of the man that God meant for you to be: a better husband, a better father, and a better follower of Jesus Christ. Number 1 is our podcast. Hit the subscribe button, share them with a friend. That makes a big difference, not only in your life, but in somebody else that you care about as well. And it helps us to reach more men. Number 2, we do a free weekly newsletter that is short, it's concise, it deals with just 1 key question and then 3 simple action items each week that will help you to get in the fight in a really practical way. You can find that at getinthefight.club/newsletter. And then lastly, you can join our Fight Club community. This is a free private app for Christian men only, where you can talk to guys and get involved with guys' lives from all around the world who are just like you, trying to get in the fight to be better men for Christ. You get things like daily devos, weekly challenges, monthly gatherings, small groups, so much more. It's kind of like a Facebook group, but exclusively for Christian men, and it's totally awesome, and it's totally free. getinthefight.club/join and check it out. Get more today. So subscribe to the YouTube channel, get our newsletter, get involved in our fight club. Totally free things to help you to get in the fight and win today. All right, that's it for now. Thanks for listening. Back to the show. Each day has enough trouble of its own. How true is that? And yet, right, there's the pause, and yet, how many of us do this? How many of us are just so worried about everything tomorrow? What might happen, what might not happen, how you're going to get there. And like, this doesn't diminish the fact that those things aren't important or that we can't just not think about the future. That's not the point. But you can't get there any faster than right now. And what you might be sacrificing, what I might be sacrificing, is the moment, the only moment that you get. I mean, you can only live right now in this moment. This is what's so crazy about this. We know this is true, but we keep, losing at life because we're just so worried about the other things. So here's the question I wrote for you. Like, where in your life are you losing time or losing energy because you're worrying about what's next instead of focusing on what's right now? As a dad, where are you losing time and energy? What should you be doing as a dad so that you can focus on what matters most? And you can just ask as a dad, like, what's important right now? As a husband, you should be asking this question: what's important right now in my marriage? What do I need to do? What's the focus right now? As a follower of Jesus, as a man, you ought to be doing the same thing. What's important right now? And I'm telling you, if we took time to do that, to live more in the moment, we would probably live much better lives, right? That's kind of the appeal, the theme of this conversation here. So right now we're focusing on the power of presence, the power of being right where your feet are planted. The second thing I thought of is like, man, I'm so guilty of this, but how many times are we waiting for perfect conditions before we act on something, right? Like, many of us don't take action in our lives. We don't act on the things that we know we should do because we're just waiting for the perfect time, even though we know, right? Like, that doesn't exist, right? It's kind of like the dad that's like, man, I'm going to be a better husband as soon as I can get this debt paid off, and then I'm going to be present. Or it's like the guy that's like, I'm going to quit pornography when life isn't so stressful for me, or when I get married, then I'll quit. Or the guy that's like, man, I'm going to just work really hard right now, but down the road here, man, I'm going to retire and things are going to change. I'm going to hang out with my kids then. Guess what? You already know the answer to all that. When you hear it, you know it's crazy. And yeah, I would just challenge you. I'm challenging myself as I think through this. Are you waiting for the right time instead of just focusing on the moment, not having to wait, for perfect conditions for you to be faithful to do what God's asked you to do? God doesn't call you to wait to do what's right. This is why, like, one of our core principles, we have 4 principles here in our Fight Club ministry for Christian men, and one of them is that I'm a man of discipline. I do the hard right thing over the easy wrong thing every time. Now, again, none of us does that perfectly, but this is kind of like the focus. This is where we're trying to figure out, like, how do I be the man that God meant for me to be? I stop waiting for things to be perfect, and I learn to be faithful in the moment. How do you do that? How do you stop waiting for perfect conditions and be faithful in the moment? You ask yourself this question that I want to hammer over and over. You say, what's important now? What's the thing that's in front of me right now that's most important? And then go do that stuff. How about this verse from Ecclesiastes 11, verse 4? Whoever watches the wind will not plant. Whoever looks at the clouds will not reap. Waiting for perfect doesn't work, right? So I want you just to think, like, what's a small action that you can take today that can align you with the life that you want to live? Like, think of it this way, maybe. Let's reverse engineer things. When you get to the end of life, let's say that you actually do get 80 years or 85 years. And let's say that you get, like, everybody that matters most to you, which again is a small number of people, by the way, that we try to impress so many people, and there's only a few that will be there in that moment. But those people that matter most are going to stand around you in this moment. You're passing from this life to the next. Like, How do you align your life so that when you get to those moments, those people say the things you wish they would say? He was the best husband. I can't imagine anybody better than that. He was this like the best dad. He was faithful. He was loving. He was kind. He was all these things. Like, what do you hope for? How about this one? Like, as a follower of Jesus, you're at the end and you cross from this world to the next. What do you hope to hear? Well, I know your correct answer is well done, good and faithful servant. But are you doing the things in the moment that will lead you and align you to hear those words? That's the question. That's like how we do this. Like, what kind of man do you want to be? I want to be strong physically. Cool. Are you doing the small things that are most important in the moment that you have? Or do you delay them, wait till perfect conditions, say, I'll get to it tomorrow, whatever it is, right? This idea of learning to go, what's important now? And then doing the things that you know are important, being a man of discipline can change your life. How about this last one? Number 3, learning to focus on the one thing that matters right now. And here's what I mean by that. We're kind of saying this over and over, but here's what I mean. Not everything in your life is equally important, right? Here's what I mean. Like, you might have work deadlines that are important, but is checking your phone at 8 o'clock at night instead of tucking your kid in or your grandson or whatever it is, or talking to your wife, is checking your phone for that thing that you're worried about tomorrow equally important with being present with your wife or kids? It's not. And yet I'm mentioning this because we treat it as if all of these things in our lives are equally important. We have guys that work late. They're working like crazy 7 days a week. And man, there's something admirable about that. And yet, are you missing connections with your kids and they're only there for a few years? Is your wife feeling disillusioned? Like, man, thank you for working so hard, but is this worth it? Right? Like, imagine if you've got that stress there going there. Are all of those things equally important at the same time? No, they're not. And is there a time that maybe you just have to, like, in a short window, just do some hard things? Yes, I get that. I'm not saying that. Like, we get it. But like, what I want you to think about is, are you treating everything like it's equally important? Because maybe it's not, right? Sometimes we treat problems like everything is urgent. And I'm telling you, everything is not urgent. Some of those same problems you're going to have the next day, right? It's like, don't worry about tomorrow. When you get to tomorrow, tomorrow will have enough troubles of itself, right? We just read that verse. This is so critical for us because we want to make sure that we are doing the one thing that matters in the moment, right? So many of us, I'm telling you, like, the most important word that some of us might need to learn this year is no. We act like everything is equally important. And so we're like, yeah, that's a great idea. I'll say yes to that. Oh, you kids want to go do that? Yeah, let's say yes to that. That's great too. That's great too. And we just keep adding on all of these that's great too things. We're saying yes to everything. And then we have no capacity for rest. We have no downtime. We have no just slowing, any of that, because we act like everything is equally important and it's not. At this moment, like right now, what I guess I would say is, what is the most important thing that you should be doing right now? I want you just to pause, maybe even literally just in a second here, pause this as you're just driving down the road or whatever you're doing. Maybe you're on the treadmill, wherever you listen to this. But I want you to seriously consider, what is the most important thing that you should be doing in your life today? What is that? You have to seriously answer that question. You've got to figure out for you how to win this battle of focus. And I think a simple way of doing it is simply to ask, what's important now? W-I-N. Do you want to win at life? Ask that question more. Think about this, by the way. Think about how many things were critical and urgent for Jesus in his short life. Jesus lives about 33 years. He starts his ministry at 30. So he's got a 3-year window to change eternity for everybody, right? He had critical upon critical upon critical ideas that he had to go after, but he didn't live that way. When Jesus was on earth, he lived a focused life on his mission. He knew his mission. and he was focused on it. We see the same thing with the Apostle Paul. He was focused. He was like one track mind kind of guy. There was lots of important things, but there was one most important thing. How about you? Like, how close to that would that describe you? Are you focused or are you stressed? Is your mind scattered? Do you feel like your life is just constantly rushed? I mean, if there's anything, by the way, if there's any word that describes people today, men today, we're like, man, this thing's really important. I know, but I'm just so what? What do you think the fill in the blank is? I'm just so busy. This is how our minds are. This is how our lives are. And we're like, yeah. I know this is important. I know I should focus on my marriage. I know I should focus on my health. I know I should focus on my kids, but I'm just so busy. And so maybe tomorrow I'll get to that. But that's not the way that we ought to live, and we know it. How about this? Luke chapter 10, verse 42. But one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her. Jesus is speaking to Mary as she's sitting at his feet instead of being distracted with the tasks, right? Mary chose the one thing that mattered most. And sometimes we get that right, sometimes we don't. But what I want you to think about is, what's the one thing that you need to prioritize on today that could make the biggest change and impact in your life? What's the one thing, right? Is it your health? Is your marriage kind of in a bad spot? But if you fix that, man, things would be so much better, so much different. Is it your spiritual life? Do you need to get back in the word? Do you need to like recommit to following Jesus? Like, what is the thing? You need to answer that question. You need to not go, wow, that's a great idea. That's a cool question. And then move on to the next podcast. You need to spend some time in that. Imagine if that one thing got fixed or changed this month or this year, whatever it is. Imagine if you could address that one thing. Maybe it's dealing with trauma from your past. It's like, man, you're holding so much anger and shame and fear and all these things. And it's like, if I don't address that thing, I'm going to continually spiral. But what if I did? What if I focused on that one thing that mattered most? That could change everything. So my challenge to you, my challenge to me, and I'm telling you, this is just such a great conversation. I hope you're feeling this today. And if so, maybe share it with a friend, put it on your social media if you think so, because I think this could be life-changing for men today. Every moment of distraction and worry that we commit our energy and our mind to means that we're stealing from what God has for us in the moment. When you are so worried and so distracted and so busy, it means that you can't focus on what matters most. It means that you're not winning. You're not winning the battle. You're not worried about what's most important now. You're worried about lots and lots of other things. There's no focus to your life. And so I want you to simply ask, what's important now? That's the way to win in life. What's important now? Like right now, in this moment, where should your focus be? Right? And then you have to be a man of discipline. You've got to do the hard right things over the easy wrong things right now. This is the key. Remember Ephesians 5. Be very careful how you live. Not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity. You don't know if you get tomorrow, fellas. You don't know if tomorrow is going to be here or 40 years from now is going to be here. The only moment you have right now is right now. And if you want to win at life, this is what you do. You stop and you ask yourself throughout the day, what's important now? And then do what's important now. That's it. That's it. It's really simple in that way. Maybe you need to, like me, just like print out the word win and put it wherever you can see it. Post it at work, put it on your screensaver. I don't know, put it in your bathroom, wherever. But put a reminder out there until this thing just gets so ingrained that you're constantly thinking, what's important now? What's important now? What's important now? What's important now? No matter what you do, if you will just kind of like take this simple idea, use this phrase, and then act on what God speaks to you in those moments, you are going to start winning battles for what matters most. Your future is dependent and it's shaped by what you do today. All these little moments, they all lead you somewhere. Are you going to end up where you want to go? That's the question. And I think the best way to get there is by stopping along the way and just saying, okay, what's important now? And then doing that. All right. Listen, thanks for listening to the show today. I would love to hear from you. If this strikes something on you, just put it in the comments, right? If there's one thing that you need to focus on today, I'd love to know what that is. I would love to see what the commonalities are for us as Christian men. So comment that or share it on social media, tag me in it, find my social media. You can find those in the show notes. Look up Greg's book in the show notes, all that kind of stuff. But man, we're here to help men be better husbands, fathers, followers of Jesus and men. And how do you do that? We win together. We focus on what matters most. And so that's how you get in the fight and win today. Have a great day. We'll see you soon. Hey guys, thanks so much for being here today and listening to the show. Please be sure to head over to the website at getinthefight.club. And before you go, if you haven't already, please subscribe, click the like button, and leave us a positive 5-star review. It makes a huge difference whenever you do. Have a great day. Go get in the fight.